Rain lashed against the glass walls of Ardent Technologies headquarters, a 20-story marvel of steel and glass in downtown Chicago. Inside, the hum of servers and the frantic whispers of engineers mixed with the staccato tapping of keyboards. The tension was so thick it was practically audibly an irony considering the problem on everyone's mind was sound. On the 17th floor, in a conference room lined with blueprints and prototypes, Billionaire CEO Elena Vargas stood like a general on the eve of battle. Her usually composed demeanor was cracked by exhaustion. Weeks of testing, millions of dollars spent, and still her company's flagship project to an advanced public acoustic dampening system was failing. If they couldn't resolve it within days, a lucrative government contract would be lost, and with it, hundreds of jobs. The engineers spoke in low tones, arguing over equations, circuit diagrams, and sound wave models projected in shimmering holograms. Elena pinched the bridge of her nose and tried to ignore the dull pounding in her temples. Downstairs, in a dim maintenance corridor far from the marble lobby, Daniel Brooks pushed his mop across a scuffed tile floor. 42, wiry, and quietly intense, Daniel had been a janitor at Ardent Technologies for 5 years. He wore his navy jumpsuit like armor, headphones dangling from his neck, an old pencil tucked behind one ear. At night, after his daughter Lily fell asleep, he'd scribble acoustic formulas in a beat-up notebook, an obsession left over from his youth as a failed music major. He still heard the world differently than others, the hidden resonances, the sympathetic vibrations, the tiny flaws in a building's sonic texture. That night, as he emptied trash cans on the 17th floor, he paused outside the conference room. Through the frosted glass he could hear fragments of conversation about wave interference, anti-resonance, and feedback loops. The sound of failure. He knew the projector they'd been testing their dampening modules for weeks, the vibrations rattling through the vents all the way to the sub-basement. And he knew, with a conviction that surprised even himself, that he could fix it. Inside, Elena Vargas slammed a tablet onto the table. "Enough," she said. "We're going in circles. None of this is working. We have 1 week before the demonstration. Maybe we're trying to dampen too broadly," one engineer said. "We coulda." "No," Elena cut him off. "We've already tried narrowing the band. It destabilizes." She caught sight of a shadow moving in the hall. The janitor, Daniel Brooks. She remembered vaguely a quiet, punctual, invisible. She had seen him pushing his cart countless times but had never spoken more than a hello. Daniel hesitated at the door. Then, before he could second-guess himself, he knocked. Inside, the room went silent. Every engineer stared at him as though he'd wandered onto a movie set. Elena arched an eyebrow. "Yes, sorry to bother you," Daniel said. I overheard you talking about the acoustic dampeners. I think I know why it's not working." A couple of engineers snickered. Elena's gaze hardened. "You're a janitor," she said, not unkindly but with a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. "What makes you think you can solve what my top engineers can't?" Daniel swallowed. "I studied sound engineering once. I've been following your project since testing started. You're fighting resonance with counter-resonance. But your nodes are fixed, not adaptive. You're basically freezing a wave that's moving." The room went very still. Elena crossed her arms. "And your solution?" "Variable phase acoustic nodes," Daniel said without hesitation. "Sensors that map the real-time harmonics and adjust dynamically. It's like ear-like jazz instead of sheet music." The engineers exchanged skeptical looks. But Elena, who had built her empire on spotting the glimmer of genius in unexpected places, tilted her head. "Show me," she said. Daniel blinked. "I'd need your schematics." "Done," Elena said, surprising her team. "He's got an hour." They cleared a workstation for him. Daniel rolled up his sleeves and sketched his idea with quick, precise strokes. As he talked softly but with growing confidence, the engineers leaned closer. He described a feedback network using inexpensive MEMS microphones and phase-shifting algorithms to create a real-time sonic mirror that could neutralize chaotic sound patterns. Elena watched, fascinated. She saw in him the same fire she'd had years ago, when she'd slept under her desk and built Ardent from nothing. Against her better judgment, she found herself believing. By midnight, Daniel had cobbled together a crude prototype from spare parts. They ran a test in the lab, a speaker blasting irregular bursts of noise, the dampener mounted on the wall. The initial readings spiked and then, like a curtain falling, the noise faded to a whisper. The room exhaled as one. Elena's mouth curved into a slow smile. "You just did what my entire engineering team couldn't," she said. Daniel flushed. "It's just a concept. It'll need refining." "You'll get whatever you need," Elena said. "And you're not a janitor anymore." But Daniel hesitated. "I can't just walk away from my job. I've got a daughter to support." Elena's gaze softened. "Then bring her in tomorrow. We'll set you up with a workspace." The next morning, Lily Brooks, a bright, curious 12-year-old, followed her dad through the gleaming lobby of Ardent Technologies, eyes wide. She'd always known her father was smart, but seeing him stride through the hallways with engineers nodding at him in respect made her chest swell with pride. Daniel threw himself into the project. Day and night he refined his algorithms, tinkered with sensor arrays, and ran tests with the engineering team. Lily became a familiar sight, sketching in a corner or asking questions about sound waves. The staff, charmed by her enthusiasm, began teaching her bits of code and math. For the first time since his wife's death, Daniel felt a community forming around them. But success bred resentment. Not everyone welcomed the janitor-turned-prodigy. Marcus Ellison, Ardent's lead engineer, felt his authority undermined. He began whispering to others that Daniel's system was unstable, untested, a publicity stunt. One evening, Marcus cornered Daniel in the lab. "You're making us all look like fools," Marcus hissed. "If this fails at the demo, it's your neck." Daniel met his gaze calmly. "It's not about me or you. It's about making it work." But Marcus's eyes flickered with something darker, a fear. Fear of being replaced. Days before the demonstration, disaster struck. Someone tampered with the prototype, introducing a subtle feedback bug that caused it to oscillate dangerously. During a test, the system emitted a piercing shriek that sent engineers clapping hands to ears. The project was shut down pending review. Elena called Daniel to her office. "Tell me straight," she said. "Can you fix it?" Daniel's stomach churned. He knew he hadn't made that change. Someone wanted him to fail. But Lily's drawing of him, a superhero with a mop as a spear, hung in his mind. "Yes," he said. "I just need time." "You have 2 days," Elena said. That night, Daniel worked alone in the lab, Lily asleep on a nearby couch. He stripped the system to its core and found the malicious code. But he realized something else. Even without sabotage, his design could still fail under unpredictable conditions. It needed a deeper resiliency, a human element. He remembered nights singing lullabies to Lily after her mother's funeral, matching her sobs with gentle hums until they fell into harmony. Not fighting chaos, but guiding it. On a hunch, he wrote a new algorithm inspired by call and response rhythms, allowing the dampeners not just to neutralize sound but to listen for intent, shifting patterns like a musician anticipating a bandmate. At 3 a.m., bleary-eyed, he ran the test. The lab filled with jagged noise, and then, impossibly, silence. The system adapted like a living thing, smoothing the discord until the room felt almost sacred. Daniel exhaled a shaky laugh. Lily stirred. "Daddy? Did it work?" He smiled. "Yeah, sweetheart, it worked." The demonstration took place in a cavernous auditorium filled with investors, government officials, and press. Elena took the stage, resplendent in a tailored suit, and introduced the new acoustic dampening system. "Built by Ardent Technologies," she said, "and designed by an extraordinary man you'd never expect." Daniel stood backstage, clutching Lily's hand. His knees trembled. When the test began, a wall of industrial speakers blasted causa sirens, machinery, overlapping voices. Then, with a simple command, The dampeners engaged. The noise collapsed to a hush. You could hear people gasp. The silence was not empty but alive, like standing inside a cathedral. Elena turned to the crowd. Imagine airports without roar, hospitals without echo, cities without noise pollution. This is the future. The applause started tentatively, then built into a thunder. Daniel felt Lily squeeze his hand. Later, as the hall emptied, Elena found Daniel and Lily standing together, a little stunned by it all. She crouched to Lily's level. "You should be proud of your dad. He didn't just change our company. He changed the world." Lily grinned. "I always knew he could." Elena stood and faced Daniel. "You've got a permanent position here, head of acoustic innovation, if you want it." And her voice softened as stock options. "You've earned it." Daniel's throat tightened. "Thank you, Buta." He glanced at Lily. "I don't want to lose what matters most." Elena smiled knowingly. "Then don't. We'll make it work." Months later, Ardent's acoustic dampeners rolled out worldwide, transforming public spaces. Daniel led a growing team, mentoring young engineers, including Marcus, who eventually apologized and became one of his staunchest allies. Lily thrived in her new environment, absorbing knowledge like sunlight. But Daniel never forgot where he came from. He kept his old janitor's badge framed on his desk, a reminder of humility. And every Friday night, he and Lily still sat on their apartment floor, strumming guitars and humming, the music of their little world mingling with the silence he'd helped create. Sometimes, when Elena visited the lab late at night, she'd pause at the door and listen, not to the machines, but to Daniel and Lily singing softly, a reminder that all the money and power in the world meant nothing without the human heart that dared to reach beyond its station. And somewhere deep inside Ardent Technologies, in the quiet hum of servers and the whisper of airflow, the system listened and learned, carrying forward the legacy of a single dad janitor whose acoustic genius quieted the chaos not just of sound, but of life itself.